Hi there, this is Clovis from Kinematic Lab. In this tutorial we will learn how to use the lines grid object. So let's open the UI Toolkit interface. And first of all, remember that you can right-click on the button to open its help page and learn how to use the tool. So let's start. I left-click on the button and click and drag in the viewport. So it creates the grid, and when you move your mouse you see that the grid size changes and adapts its division. When you release the mouse button, the size stays fixed, but now you control the line's thickness. And if you left click again, the object is done and you can create other grids. Over and over. And you stop the creation with right click. Okay, so now let's go in the grid parameter here. So I will delete these grids and create another one. Fine. So here you will find all the parameters to control the grid size and division. So you have the length and width here to change the size of your grid. And by default you see that when I change the grid size, the number of divisions changes. That's because the link to world grid option here is on. Okay, which means that the tool keeps the grid divisions close to the grid size. So if I remove this grid again and activate the grid snap option, now it snaps to the 3ds Max grid, and if I create the grid you see that all the divisions are now exactly like the grid. So even if I change these values, it still snaps to the grid as much as possible. So you can disable this option, and now you see that the count doesn't change at all, just the size of the grid. So even if this option is checked, you still can change the number of segments here and there. Okay. So now in the lines parameter, you will find all the parameters to control the lines aspect. So you can enable or disable all these options to show the frame, the length lines or the width lines all together or one by one. You can change the frame width, the lines width, and the line div here changes the number of subdivisions on each line, as you can see here, which is useful with the div size parameter because it separates all the lines to make dotted lines. Okay. Now in this variation options, you can find option to modify just some lines. So the on-off option here enables or disables these modifications. Okay. The each value says each n lines the parameter will change. So let's say for now each 5 lines the line is gonna be 2 for the width parameter. So you see that it can be each 1 line, each 2 lines, each 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. Now let's talk about the dots. In this rollout you will find all the parameters to control the dots aspect. So the on-off option enables or disables the dots. So if I check it, see now I have some dots. And they are generated on each line's intersection. The on-frame option enables or disables the dots only along the frame. And you have here 4 options to choose the type of dots you want. It can be a circle, it can be a square, it can be a sphere, or it can be a custom mesh. And each of these options have their own parameters, so the circle can be changed like that with the radius, or you can modify its segments. Okay, the square, you can change the length, the width, you can change the alignment of it as well, center, left or right. The sphere has also some segments and a radius. Okay, and you can even pick here a custom mesh. So I will create a quick mesh. So this can be a dot as well, so I just pick it with this button, and now this mesh is placed on the grid like the other dots. Okay, you can change its size with this value, and in this case what is great as well is that you can modify this geometry and it's gonna be changed on the scene on the grid as well. So it's a kind of reference. Let's remove the dots and talk about the numbers parameters. So in this rollout we'll find the parameters to add numbers to your grid. So with the length and width on-off options you can enable or disable the numbers on your grid like that. Now you can see the numbers and you can change the font. So by choosing in this list you will have access to all the fonts installed in your computer, and you just can choose the one you need. And you can change the number size. Also with the len start and end values you change the start and end number along this side of the grid. Each value creates a number each n lines, so right now it's each 1 line, but you can say each 2 lines or each 4 lines like it is on the variation. If I change my variations to each 5 lines, it would be great to change it here too, so it sticks to the thicker lines. Okay, and you have the offset value to move the numbers away from the grid or inside it. And the steps here let you choose what is the baseline for the number. So right now it's more around it, like along the frame, but if you change it, it can be any line of the grid. And you have the exact same parameters for the width. Okay, you can change the same stuff. You can disable the lines without removing the numbers, so it can be handy sometimes depending on what you need to do. Now let's talk about the materials a little bit. So this object is like the other UI Toolkit plugins. It's already setted with different material IDs. So if you apply a multi-sub object to it, I prepared one for this scene and I apply it to the grid. Okay, I'll just turn on all the lines and the dots. Fine. So now you see that the ID number 1 is for the frame, the ID number 2 is for the lines, the ID number 3 is for the dots, and the number 4 is for the numbers. So this is already set. You just have to create a multi-sub objects and put your materials here with the colors. Can be any materials, can be anything. So that's it for now. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.